Welcome back, everyone. This is our last episode of Women in Business. And today I have one of my favorite guests, one of my favorite subjects, money, money, money with Cheryl Nelson-Boyd. And we're going to be breaking down money. And you can't be a princess anymore. You got to be in charge of your finances. So stay with me. Hello, everyone. This is Meredith with a Y, and I am your host, Meredith Willits. Today, we are going to go deep, changing lives, and I am giving you the keys to the castle. Cheryl, thank you so much for being here because we cannot be princesses anymore. We must be queens and know our finances. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Yeah,
I've been waiting and waiting.
Well, because we're doing it today.
We're doing it.
No more. When I die, contact this attorney and he'll tell you everything.
No.
Or being oblivious as to what you own and where your money's at. No more signing papers and ending up in jail like so many housewives on TV. Like we're done. We are tapping out.
The lessons have been learned. Yes, it's time for the next phase.
And so just to let everyone know, so you tell everyone what you do and then we're going to get into it.
Yes. So I am a certified financial planner and behavioral financial advisor. I've been working, it'll be 15 years next year because I started as a baby, and I focus my practice around supporting working families that are juggling multiple financial goals. So maybe they're starting a family, starting a business, doing both, and then also thinking about their long-term or thinking about other liabilities and things like that. So really understanding how we create a balance and really keep people connected to their money.
Yeah, because okay, like I just said, it's not working. Head in the sand doesn't work.
No.
Head in the sand doesn't work. Princess mentality doesn't work. No. Ignoring it and hoping that our money problems go away. Thinking that retirement is going to be 35,000 years in the future and we'll figure it out when we get there, or Social Security is going to handle it. All of these things don't work.
No.
We have to have the come to Jesus. We have to get with someone who might know more than us about money.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think most people see it in their own life, or it happens to them where something happens financially or otherwise that is completely unexpected. And it exposes all these years of ignoring, deferring, whatever. And it might be a death, it might be a divorce, it might be a job change. It doesn't really matter what the event is. If you haven't built that discipline and built that relationship with your money, you have the rudest awakening. And most of the time you can recover from it. Of course, financial recovery happens in everybody's life because of these unexpected events. But if you start with a good foundation and you're working with a team of professionals that connect you to your money, that's where we can try to control some of these factors that we can't control. And what I have seen way too often in my line of work is just the outsourcing. Like, oh, that person understands my investments. They understand insurance. They understand our estate plan. They understand my buy-sell agreement. But do you understand it? How much time are you spending really looking at these numbers, knowing your numeric reality, and checking in with yourself about how you feel when we're doing this disconnect behavior of like, and I'm a fan of outsourcing, so don't get me wrong. I never want to clean my bathroom again, right? But I still have to go in it and see it and understand what's happening in there.
Right.
And when we outsource, it really means that there's something about it, or when we're using disconnect, that we're not ready to face. Maybe there's a stressful situation. Maybe there's a decision we made that we're still regretting that we haven't worked through, but this deferring doesn't change the past either. So it's really about finding people that can empower you to focus on what you need to do.
Yeah. And it's, for people out there, like I know, we all have the relative who never saved for retirement. Or we have, I'm seeing it and unfortunately in some people's lives, which is, they have to work basically until they die, or they have, like we've seen it with COVID, they don't
Right.
have any money to go to for any type of situation. And, or, the wife didn't know that they couldn't afford things and was just
Right.
buying and spending and buying and spending. And the husband didn't want to disappoint, i.e. Erica Girardi, hello, and just kept funneling money, right? Funneling money, housewives reference. But because, and we see this, it's like we're living in a dream.
Right.
And, I would like to be there. I would like sometimes to be the princess.
It's a nice dream. I mean, dreams are important, but you don't want to be in the nightmare. And Meredith and I are both housewife, huge fans, love it. And I do think that show it's so fun and entertaining, but then you see these really difficult situations that these women land in, and you think like, wow, how could that ever happen? And then it's like, well, it actually happens all the time. So much of my practice is working with women that are in these unexpected transitions, and we'll work on how to describe it, but it just means that they thought they were going to be married forever, and then they weren't all of a sudden, and never had worked with the checkbook, looked at retirement accounts, like never had worked with that stuff. And it's important in a relationship, if somebody really likes to do that. I don't really like to budget. My husband likes to look at those numbers. Great. But come together, don't let one person handle everything, and then also give them all the stress of handling that.
Yeah.
Really, the goal of working with a financial planner is to translate sometimes between the couple of like what the needs are and what the goals are, but also be that neutral party where I don't need to talk to you about what you spend at Starbucks. Maybe you guys want to talk about that later, but this is how much we need to save for whatever the goals are.
Or this is how much you're spending on Starbucks. Like you literally, here's an airplane ticket to Italy or Starbucks. like
I love that you put it like that too, because it's like there was that huge movement around like stop buying lattes and save for retirement. It's like, or just think about what your goals are. Like do what you want. Let your money do what you want it to do. We work very hard for it and we have one life, but don't be wasteful and don't go back to that psychological disconnect where it's like, oh, I can just do this every day. I can spend this much. I can do whatever I want. I never have to log into my 401k. I never have to figure out why my credit card balance is higher than my income. Like, yes, you do. Unfortunately.
And it's funny because I'm the one that handles all the bills.
Yeah.
And, I'm the one that makes these big, huge purchases. Like we redid the house, we redid the basement, tens of thousands of dollars. And then my husband will say, well, I want to sign the kids up for hockey, which is another is another college tuition payment, right?
I know. I'm like,
run in the other direction.
Gonna enjoy hockey this much.
Run, Cheryl, run away from it. And so I say, okay, I understand you want to put the kids in hockey and that they want to play hockey, but they're also playing travel baseball, travel softball, volleyball, hockey.
Yeah.
I want you to understand but when one person, my point is when one person is the quote gatekeeper,
right,
then they also become like the parent where I am
totally
allowing or not allowing a purchase, where I'm the bad guy, where I'm the one that's saying, look, we can't do all of it, and then mom's the mean one, and Jim, my husband, he backs me up, but he does give me the look also, which is, well, why can't they do it? Like, I'm like, well, I don't know, because because we're 10 grand a year in sports for a 10 and 12-year-old. That's why. Like, this is dumb. We've entered insanity. We've entered insanity. We don't have that kind of money. But you also, if you're a team and someone says, I want a Gucci belt, or I want to go on a vacation, or I want to put the kids in XYZ, but you're a team, then husband goes, yeah, we're not doing that, kids, because they are privy to the big picture.
Exactly. And I love that concept of being on the same team with your spouse or partner, with yourself. Like, it's not what most people run into when they're hitting things like that with budget is I don't want to be the no. I don't want to be the police. I don't want to be the parent. I don't want to be the sad Sally. But if we look at a budget from an intentional spending place and we stop talking about, oh, we're going to spend this much, we're going to invest. How much do we want to invest in our kids' sports? How much do we want to invest in cable TV? I mean, talk about that.
Right.
I
have 700 memberships. I cut cable. I now have 700
I believe it.
memberships to television shows. I'm probably at $500 a month for God knows what, but I don't have cable. So there's that. So I'm winning.
So we don't have cable.
I'm winning
you're
war.
With the hip kids. Yeah. You get to say, like everyone else around the glass of wine, I don't have cable.
I don't have cable. I don't have cable
for that. And it's so true. It's these little decisions where you can approach it from something that is happening to you, or you can take the empowered, this is what we're doing, this is what we have money for, and this is how we're investing in the life that we want to have. And I think getting on the same page with someone of what does wealth mean to you? What does financial security mean to you? What does being rich mean? Some people love that word and some people hear it and it's like, rich is bad. Like you've got to dig in to what these terms mean to you, because if you're not, then it's easy to get caught up in the little things. And now you think it's Starbucks that's holding you back from your financial goals, when really it's actually the concept of wealth. It's actually the concept of not having debt. It's things like that. So it's really, really interesting.
It's interesting because, I mean, if you think about it, okay, my whole relationship with money and income and ability to attract and get and earn money changed probably about 6 years ago when I decided that money was energy. And that energy flows in, it flows out, you can attract it, because what we know growing up in the 70s, 80s, you saw the big, money's the root of all evil, and, people, so we had connotations. We've gotten connotations of money from our parents, from our grandparents. So whatever side of the depression your grandparents landed on, right, and how wealth was. I mean, I had my maternal great grandmother was the person that you'd walk through her family room with stacks of magazines and stuff like that, hoarding magazines and newspapers. Like that was a reality. So her daughter's daughter raised me. So there's a money issue there. Right. And so when I decided to change money into energy, that really shifted, because to me, money seemed difficult to get. It seemed like you were being more pious if you lived in a smaller home and you saved and you scrimped and struggled. You were a more worthy person by your struggle, right? And so when I switched it over that money is only energy and I give out energy all day long in a million different ways, then of course energy is going to come back to me in a million different ways, one of which is money, right?
Right.
And so I think it's super important that we understand our relationship and how we view money and how we view having an account of money and how we view attracting and earning money and spending money. All these things I think need to be looked at. And P.S., money is one of the number one reasons people get divorced.
Oh, girl. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And get divorced in, the traditional context, but also changes relationships with their parents, with their friends, with their work. Like wanting to ignore or defer from money is like wanting to defer from oxygen in our society.
Right.
Like, you won't be able to do that successfully. You can absolutely try. And I think something that was so wonderful about what you just shared is what you've done to heal your own perspectives. You're actually healing generations of perspectives. It's not right or wrong. There's so much context to what has happened in our family life and why that's shaped the beliefs and the values and the perceptions of money, all understood. But our job is to decide what that means in our life. And then by doing the work that you're talking about, now the next generation, your kids, who are going to be very athletic, it sounds like, on top of, having great money mindsets, but there's all this other, trust me, my kids will do plenty of work because of being raised by me. but hopefully the money mindset and that mentality won't be part of it, or it will just look different for them. And I think getting out of these generational patterns is one of my favorite things to do when you're working with multiple, maybe it's the parents and the kids, or the kids that brought in the parents, looking at the different generations, because you can see how the same concept is playing out in a different time frame. And then we can actually correct like what the belief is, instead of, talking about all the other parts of what's happened in a family life, which are very fascinating, but more suited for Bravo, I think.
Well, and not just that, like, it's also interesting the way that, like you said, the word rich, wealth, success, those things have all also changed societally. Like when I talk about it all the time, like Chris Farley used to be on SNL warning of the dangers of living in a van down by the river, because that meant you were the epitome of a loser, right? Like, we don't want to live in a van down by the river. Now the millennials look at living in a van down by the river as the most
dream.
wealth dream. That is success. Being on your laptop 3 hours a day and being in a van down by the river. It's a Mercedes Sprinter, but it's still a van down by the river.
And it's very Pinterest decked out, but
very Pinterest out.
Maybe if Chris Farley had seen those, he would have had a different
exactly.
Joke,
but yeah,
so
true. Everything is changing. And I think, and I'm reading this great book, Laura Bull, it's Individual to Empire. And she says, and this goes back to you, is what's the goalpost? What is success? If we do not define success, be it with our goals with money, be it our goals with savings, our goals with investing, our goals with being on the same page with our spouse, with spending on sports, it becomes a gray blob of nothing. Right. We don't know where we're headed. What are we not going to dinner for? Well, we're not going out to dinner because we're saving for a vacation. We're saving for college. We're saving for retirement. So we need to have a goalpost to see, maybe we're done saving.
Right.
Maybe we have enough. Like, I don't know, like, there's all these things that we need to understand with an advisor to go, all right, we do have our needs met, or we just need to put in X amount more, which is, not the end of the world. And yeah, we can still sign the kids up for hockey. We're fine.
Right. I think that's the number one job of the relationship between the client and the advisor is, I want to understand you. I want to understand your perspectives, your beliefs, and your dreams and goals. But then part of that job too is giving you the accountability. I say all day long, all kinds of things I want to do with my health and my fitness and my life and my kids. And then if I don't have accountability to any of it, I'm just talking, and it's all a nice idea, but nobody's reminding me like, hey, you probably don't need to have Frosé all day if you want to like get in shape. You need those people. And it's the same in our financial life. It is okay to do what you want to do with your money, as long as you're being accountable to yourself and hopefully accountable to a good advisor about why you are where you are and what your numeric reality is actually reflecting about what you really want. Like maybe you don't really want to retire at 55. Maybe you really funding college isn't the full goal for you. And that's okay too. I think something that I hope to correct with my own practice and really influence in the industry is taking people out of the shame of what they're supposed to be doing with their money based on some ridiculous, article, radio show, whatever it is, and really building that relationship between what you can do with your money. If you decide to go from a budget to an intentional spending plan, and now instead of going to Starbucks, you're going to your locally women-owned, like awesome coffee shop, you're doing something with your money that's reflecting the way you want to see the world. And that's a really powerful thing that 100%. You can do.
Because what, we vote with our money, whether people realize it or not. We vote with our money of the people we want to support, the businesses we want to support, the way, and I do kick myself every time I order every single day, all day long from Amazon. I do have self-hatred because I'm supporting.
We will be in a support group.
but
it was
easy.
Really interesting talking to my husband about like, I don't think I can, like, I can't reconcile this in my brain. I don't agree with X, Y, and Z about whatever. But yet, like, there's something really lovely about, oh, I need a bike lock and it's here in like 24 hours.
And I
So
didn't have to schlep 30 minutes to
I went
Target,
nowhere. I saw
30
no
minutes in
people.
Target. I saw no people. I didn't spend money I didn't need to not spend. Like that's the
Yeah.
like I order from Costco for the sheer factor I do not want to spend an additional $500 on shit that I do not need. Like
Right.
I just want to get my mac and cheese and coffee. Like it's okay. So speaking
Well,
of
and it
money,
is okay. Like, let's give grace to ourselves, because part
yeah,
of getting people out of like the shame that society has put on some of the things with our money is having that grace to say, like,
yeah.
yes, let that be. If that's more important to you, if the convenience, if whatever, you're valuing that, and that's okay. Let's move on. Let's get to the next piece of the pie.
Well, and I see that like with working moms with Instacart, because like the more like
Yeah.
I've ramped up my days, and I don't really have that kind of time to be going to the grocery store. I can't imagine women who are like 40 hours a week, all, in the office at 8, out of the office at 6, picking up the kids at daycare,
Right.
getting home by 6:30. Oh, and PS, you have to make dinner and go grocery shopping. I don't know. So we do have to give ourselves some space and understand that like if you got an
Yes.
Instacart and like, or just pick up your, like these things are here for us to make our lives a little bit easier, allow them.
Yeah.
So speaking of spending money, how like
Favorite.
a financial plan, it sounds expensive. Like like
Well, isn't it fancy?
it sounds
Yes.
fancy. Like I have my call my financial planner. And I'll
Oh,
tell
my money person.
you my money. I
Yes.
gotta find. Right.
And I already feel them looking down on you. I think something that's really incredible that's happened in the last 5 years is really when it's gotten a lot of traction. It's been happening since I started in this industry, is seeing the access that people are getting to trading and financial advice and all of that through technology. It's really incredible, because what used to be like a few $1,000s, and you drive into the office and the office has mahogany and, you know, red carpet rolled out, all of that is like dying and going away. And now people are logging into an app and seeing everything right away. I think for my practice, it's important to me that there's access on either side. There's an asset management option, there's a financial planning option. And typically those fees start around $100 a month for me, but I'm very open. I know you could go on other sites and talk to not a person, but maybe like a different platform. And I think it's really important for people to understand, what do they want from a financial planner? Like, what are you looking for? If you want efficiency, sometimes that, boutique practice, that's not the experience that you need. But if you do want to work on some other things that are maybe more psychological or emotional, or there's intergenerational planning, that app might not be enough for what you're looking for. But I think that's one of the most incredible things that's happened, is once you know what you are looking for, there's 1,000 options to get it. I'm just the best one.
Of course. Well, of course, Cheryl. So like I have a 401k from my husband's past job, and we gave that 401k to a guy. We got a guy. Everyone's got a guy, right? We got a guy, we got a gal, right?
Yep.
So it's given to a guy, and they're just kind of holding that 401k and reinvesting it and moving it around and all that kind of stuff. But that's not a financial plan.
No. So really a financial plan looks at their foundation. So understanding what's your net worth, what do you own, what do you owe, and then looking at cash flow, what's the income coming into the household, what are the expenses going out. Protection planning is a really important piece there. So understanding what kinds of insurance you have versus the kinds of risk that you face, and if there are any adjustments or tweaks there. And then you deep dive into specific goals. So whether it's education planning, retirement planning, whatever that looks like for you, understanding your goals. And that's where the value piece comes into play, because most of the foundational things, that's all the math, and it's not hard math, and it's very easy, fun math, but it's really easy to say that this is your net worth number. This is how much you're spending. When we get into your goals, understanding your values first is the most important part, because if I value X, Y, and Z, but I'm just going back to the Amazon example or whatnot, or even like the convenience example, if I do value efficiency, I'm going to use an Instacart all day long. I'm going to use these things because that's where my values are aligned with some financial behavior. And then can take that and really paint the picture of your goals. And to your point, a lot of times people are on track for what they want to do. They just didn't put it in the context like that. Or maybe there's some aspects of risk that, like, yes, you're on track, but we need to adjust where things are being held. One really important thing, so I affiliate with Ameriprise Financial, and I love their technology piece on this, where we can go, when you log into your account, you can see right away, this is the money and this is the goal that it's for, and this is where I stand with that goal. It's one of the first things you see. And then you also have the ability to rename each account. So I don't have a retirement account, I have an independence account, because when I look at my retirement account, it's like, all right, well, that's not fun. But when I think about my independence, that's aligned with my values. And that really helps kind of connect between what that means to me and what I want that to look like in my financial life. And then the third piece is Total View, which is like a Fitbit for your money. You can load in really anything with an electronic login and get a real-time net worth number. So having those three components of the values being reflected in what you actually call the accounts, tracking the goal right away, and then seeing in real time, because we have been, or we're still in a pandemic. And back in March and April, when there was extreme market volatility, going into Total View and seeing, okay, this is happening, but here's your net worth and here's what that means for your goal. Having all of those pieces in place really created a lot of financial confidence for people in an incredibly uncertain time. And that's the goal. You really want to stay confident even when things are changing, because they're changing every day.
Yeah, I will say that, like, because I have a house that I bought 20 years ago in Ohio, and knowing that that house is there, and that, like, literally if all hell broke loose, that I could go there and my family could go there, and there's good schools, and we could literally, like, collect pop bottles and make the mortgage payment because it was bought so long ago, there's a few bucks out on it. There's so much peace in having that parachute of life. Like, if we sold this house, if we sold that, and we could just go there and we could literally work at Target and make that payment, and it doesn't have to be a whole harangue, because, like, there's only so many people in the world that are vice president of sports. So if my husband couldn't find another job because there's only so many sports teams, like, I always look at that and go, but I've got that. But that's there. And so, these little, and when we had a big, huge change in our life, knowing that we had a few bucks over here and a few bucks over there to land on, that is life-changing confidence. And it actually is funny, because when you do have those parachutes in place, you live life differently.
Absolutely.
You don't live in fear. You're not a nervous wreck. You don't speak from fear base with your kids of, we can't have that because there's not enough money. Like, saying stuff like that to your kids is so damaging and creates so much fear around their everyday life. Like, well, does that mean we don't have enough food? And maybe you don't have to get me a birthday present. And that's okay. I won't ask for new shoes, even though I'm walking around and there's a hole in the bottom of my shoes, but you've instilled so much fear in me that I'm afraid to ask. Like, we don't really want to put our kids, even if we are, like, I made $12 an hour when I was a single mom. Trust me, I know what broke looks like, but I never wanted to put my kids in a state of panic or fear or less than, or we don't have enough mentality. And I think that we need to really understand that our relationship with money and putting a little bit away every month is so beneficial to having confidence. Like, I will say to my husband all the time, I never want you to panic about your job, because we'll be okay, because we have the Ohio house, like, or whatever, like, we're fine. Like, I don't want you to ever keep a job that you don't like, which he likes his job, but based on the fact of fear. And so when we put ourselves in a position to not see and be in fear of money, or the fear of lack of money, it changes your entire life. The more money we've ever had in a savings account, the more I actually feel emblazoned, empowered to go out and help more people and do more things, because I have, like, a little bit of padding to fall back on. It just changes the energy, of everything. So let me ask you this, because like, I'm pretending like I'm going to, go and use you, and I'm going to call my husband when I get off this, and I'm going to say, look, we need to do a plan.
You are.
I am. And so are you going to say, yeah, you can't keep buying stuff like that. Like you need to settle down.
Oh, am I a mean boss? Yeah. Um,
Are you going to tell me no more of stuff? Are
know,
you going to tell me that?
I love that question because it really goes back. I think you're hitting on two pieces here. It's important to know the costs of financial services, any cost, whether it's fees in the retirement account, fees at the bank, like there's costs everywhere. And there has to be value. And it says for some people that are a little bit more like hands-on with their finances, there's not going to be a tremendous amount of value because they've got their tracking and they've got these guideposts of where they feel secure. And that's great. Our job, my job specifically, is to really focus in on what you need from your financial life and how do you get there. And going back to like, it is not my job to shame people. And in many ways, it's not my job to correct their spending. It's important to know things like these are the points of my life that make me feel financially confident. Maybe it's a certain amount in a savings account. Maybe it's a property like this. Maybe it's knowing X, Y, and Z. But then where are the blind spots that, because we all have them, you know, where are the parts that I'm not paying enough attention, that I need some context and some accountability. And that's the job of a good financial planner, is to really provide the context to how you achieve your goals and understand who you are as a person. What are some of the psychological or emotional blocks between you and your goals? And then how do we get on the track that you want to be on? Because it's not about my track or, you know, keeping you to a certain spending plan or doing this or that. It's about you having a good life and a good financial life, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I think this is important for people, whether you're making $2,000 a month or
Mm-hmm.
$20,000 a month, because when you're making the $2,000 a month, you always think, well, when I'm 40, when I'm 30, when I'm 50, I'll make more money and I can save for retirement then.
Right.
You know, like you need, even if it's just putting away $100 a month or, you know, really tackling a Roth IRA every single year as much as you can. There's a lot of really great financial tools that can be used when you're not making a lot of money that you can take advantage of. Like I have two older kids, 22 and 25, and they're so much better than me. Like I used to I'd get paid and I'd go to like Macy's and buy clothes and shoes, and I was in credit card debt. Like they're not doing, like there's so much more information for these kids these days. It's so great. But it's important, no matter how much money you're making, to really invest in you, invest in your future, invest in your family. You know, because what happens? This is a perfect example. Putting off waiting for retirement is like when you put off saving for Christmas until November. And then I mean, it's the same energy. So if you're a person that doesn't save every month for Christmas, and then all of a sudden Christmas shows up and you're like, shit, I have no money. Welcome to retirement. Like that's what it's going to look like.
Times a million. Yes.
Times a million.
I think it's such a great point. It's about the disciplines, you know, figuring out money, building the kind of life you want from a wealth perspective is about your day-to-day disciplines. And what are those small habits that you can put into place, no matter what your financial life looks like, that really get you to where you want to be? Because I think that's so true. And I've seen that in my life, and I've seen that in the clients that I work with. It's like, oh, well, when there's more, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, what makes you think that? It's like, oh, when I'm 35, I'll run a marathon. It's like, you never go running though. Like
you're doing nothing to get there.
Gone for a run. Like, how's that going to work out? So, you know, and that goes back to the psychological work of why do you want to do that? What's the goal here? What does that mean to you? And then why aren't you trying to do it each day? There's a reason that hopefully we all get up and brush our teeth at least twice a day. Like we started doing that a long time ago. And unless you're like me, you know, I'm just a dentist dream, but you know, usually that gives you a really healthy habit that you can keep in place long term. And it's the exact same thing with your money. It's just about building habits. Yeah. It's not just about building that, but foundationally.
And then you don't miss it. Like I always look at everything like it's like car insurance. You just pay it every month. It's just the way that it is. So you might as well
Right.
pay yourself, pay your, future future self, because
Yeah.
we're paying insurance. That is, but okay. So I have to
And
ask
that's
you,
why I love those names of the
yeah,
accounts too, because it's like, oh yeah, I do want to put money towards my independence. I
yeah,
do want to put money towards safety, or, whatever the values are, because that's so much more fun.
so much more fun.
Yeah.
So much more fun. So I have to ask you, we in our pre-interview, I talked about the top 3 biggest mistakes that you see when it comes to being like a financial planner. What have you seen out there? What are your top big 3 mistakes people are making?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the first one, which is just creating disconnect between you and your money. And however you're doing that, whether it's just, I don't look at this, I don't look at my bank account, I don't look at my investments. You really want to change that perception to, this is a relationship. This is one of the most important relationships. And you don't want to be disconnected from one of your most important relationships. So really looking at what kind of small habits you can start with to build that relationship and really take away that disconnect, I think is crucial. The second one is the myth that women are bad with money, or that money is about math. Like, it drives me so bonkers too. And I'm still in an industry where the role that I'm in, working with clients in the capacity that I work with, is still in, depending on the day of when they do the study, between 80 and 87% male. So I hear it a lot and I understand that it's deeply ingrained in our society. But what I know to be true is that women are amazing investors. Women are disciplined spenders. When we get more money in the hands of women, it directly goes back into their families and their communities. They build better societies. So the narrative about women and money, I want to destroy with my life's work. So that's
Yeah,
one
right.
goal.
Well, it
And
feeds
then,
it feeds the give the men the money.
exactly. It just builds
Who
disconnect.
benefits from that story?
Totally.
Come
Totally.
on,
If
guys.
you had the teacher in middle school tell you weren't good at this, or, you went to home ec class and you got to sew and the boy went to balance the checkbook, like, this is where we learn. And also, let's just recall that, like, nobody woke up in their mid 30s, mid 40s, mid 50s with any of these concepts. Like, we created them over a lifetime of experiences and narratives and all of that fun stuff. So take some time with where that came from, because that we know from the data, it's completely untrue. Women asset managers are amazing. The day-to-day behaviors, like, there's so much better data to combat that. And it's still a really popular misconception.
Yeah. So women are good.
Slowly kill. Women are amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. And that's just
Well, and I
yeah.
think that goes right to the third part too. If you are in a partnership, a marriage, and you are making financial decisions with someone, build the strengths of each other. Don't you do this, I do that, and never do the two. Discuss, like, really creating those times where you can talk about your dreams and your goals, talk about what wealth means to you, and then understand, like, okay, here's where we are today. Here's our numeric reality. Here's how we're saving, and here's what our liabilities are. Trying to just diffuse some of the tension that can come up in relationships over money, and make it about, like, what's the life we're building together, because that can be a lot more sustainable. And to your point, when we don't have that sustainability in a relationship, you might be soulmates from the heavens that, like, they haven't even written a romance book about yet.
Right.
But if you can't get on the same page with this piece, it will just break down the trust and the relationship, the ownership, and the perceptions of one another. And so that's where I think there can be a lot of value working with a financial professional too, for couples.
Yeah. And when I talk to people, like, I do counseling and coaching with a bunch of different folks. And one of the things that I see is, either people that are married that, like you're saying, they're not checked in, they're not both checked in, or there's, they've been married for X amount of time and they still have separate accounts. That to me is mind blowing. Like, if you do not trust your spouse with your energy, there's more going on here. So like, I know, and I know there's a lot of people out there listening who are going to say, well, my husband and I have separate accounts and it works for us. And he pays half the mortgage and I pay half the mortgage. I just can't breathe with it. But
I'm gonna blow your mind because I'm gonna be one of those people.
are you really?
So we have found, and I own my own practice. So like I have a business account,
Right.
there
Well,
is
yeah.
some complexity to our situation, but we have found that it really helps to have like, this is your fun money.
Yeah,
This
no,
is my
yeah.
fun money. I don't need to know what goes on in that
Yeah.
account. I know it's golf, but I don't need to
Right.
know.
No, and I agree
And
with
then
that.
have like a
We are
shared
the
account.
same.
But
Yeah.
I think you're totally right. If there's not transparency, and
Yeah.
then it's truly like, you do your thing, I do my thing. Are you going to buy a house together? Are you going to retire together? Are you going to raise a family together? Because
Yeah.
there has to be a reflection of what resources you need to do things together
Yeah.
somewhere in the financial picture. But you're right. If it's about like, when you're not talking about money with your spouse, it's usually because there's mistrust, there might be financial infidelity, there might be all kinds of other things about it. It's not just like I'm an independent woman kind of vibe.
And then
or
you end up like
man.
Erica Girardi.
It's just a real rough ride
Chaos.
this season. I mean,
I know.
And it even hearing, okay, so now we're going to go down the Bravo wormhole, but just come with us, guys. It's fine. Hearing the way that these women talk to each other about what's happening with Erica. And it's like, well, how did you not know that? It was going on in your LLC. And I have this much wealth, so I do this, but I have this much wealth, so my husband does that. It's like, oh my gosh, when are we going to get someone in there to talk to, like, to moderate this discussion? Because we're passing down these terrible misconceptions of like, well, I don't need to know that because my husband would never do that. And if I asked him about the money, he would tell me. It's like, well, no, like,
and she did ask her husband. She did ask her husband.
Right.
And he just kept giving her a credit card to spend. This is all on Housewives of Beverly Hills. But these are real people, and this is really playing out. And I mean, this is a real thing.
Exactly.
But like,
it's not the first time we've seen a city of housewives where there's some ridiculous like financial scandal, and it gets glossed over. I mean, it's entertainment and I understand that, but it's not like, this is somebody's real life. And when you're hearing the way their friends are talking about their real life, it's like, well, what's going on there? Like, so you guys aren't talking about money either. Like, is that the key? It's just really, really shocking to watch.
Yeah. And that's I'm always like, stop trying to raise our daughters as these princesses who just get whisked off to vacations and whisked off to dinners. And, like, I talk to my girlfriends, like, I understand that you want your husband to buy you a very expensive diamond ring, but what's that in lieu of? Like, what goals could you have had, or you do have financially? I know it's fun to get a 4-carat diamond ring, but don't you have any? I wish I was joking, but yeah,
I'll take it.
I know, but I look at it and I'm like, well, I would like to have that, but there's so many other things I want to do with that money. Like, it's fun to be the princess, but eventually you have to grow up and be the queen and start deciding what you're going to do with your money. So that being said, what are the best things besides hiring Cheryl Boyd as their financial planner? What are some top 3 things a woman can do, like maybe starting today or this week, to change and help their financial picture, big picture, whether they're married or not? Like, what can we do as women?
Yeah. Well, and to that point, you can have this wealthy life, you can have this good stuff. This is about being empowered in what that means. It's not about like good or like, is this thing good or bad necessarily. I am a big fan of James Peterson's book Atomic Habits, and the concept about the 1% change. Like, what can you do that's actually something sustainable? Because I hear a lot of times this rhetoric around personal finance of like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to buy a money journal and I'm going to write in it every day. It's like, well, do you journal ever? Like, because you're not going to do it. Yeah, you're not going to do it. And so I think finding the micro step is really important. And it can be something as simple as, I'm going to log into my bank account every day. I'm going to log into my retirement account once a week. I'm just going to start looking at these numbers. I'm going to start spending some time with it, going back to your relationship with money, you've got to invest the time. And that's okay to just start small if it feels intimidating or stressful or whatever. So I think that's really crucial. I think understanding your own money narrative is key. And thinking back on some prompts like, what's your first memory of money? What's the first thing you bought? What's the first time you felt stress around it? What are some decisions that you've made that you feel really good and empowered by? What were some decisions that you felt just like, I don't know how to handle money because of X, Y, and Z? So I think that narrative is really key, because then you can start to identify like, oh, is that true? Like, am I bad at money because I took out a student loan? Is that real? Like, that doesn't sound real. There's a
Right.
lot of people with that kind of thing that are still very confident and good with money. And so I think that's crucial. And then the third thing, I'm always going to advocate finding someone that can help you with this. And hopefully it's a financial professional with a fiduciary obligation that's really focused on a long-term relationship with you and your money. But even if it's a friend that you're just like, I'm going to talk to the person I trust the most, or your spouse, like, let's get some conversations around money so that it stops being ambiguous and vague and it just starts feeling normal to talk about these kinds of things.
And if you are in a relationship and you do walk up to your spouse or partner and say, I want to talk about the money, and they have a stroke out and they freak out and they don't want to, ding, 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 red flag.
I mean, we've
That's not a
seen it
good
on the
thing.
shows already,
Yes.
ladies.
Go start watching Housewives. You'll find
It's
out. Yes.
never gonna end well.
Never going to
That's
end
not
well.
a storyline that ever gets a good look at the reunion. I'll just put it that way.
Never
And
goes
I
well.
do think that's, yeah. Now I know I'm supposed to do three, but I do have a couple more. It's so important to really see what's happening in that context. If you're in a relationship making financial decisions together, but it's not a peaceful discussion, that's okay. That's not the first like red flag. But if it's never a peaceful discussion, if it's always a fight, if it's a very like, you get this and I'm not going to talk to you about that, that's financial abuse. And that's very, very serious. And it can happen very strategically over time, or it can just be one big blow up and then you never talk about it again. And that's where professional help can hopefully diffuse, but then also, start naming things for what they are and really letting you decide, is that the context that I want to stay in if we can't have a conversation about Starbucks? I mean,
Yeah. And I
and
mean, that's the thing that I see in relationships. Like, I don't want to be anyone's mom. And be, like I said, the gatekeeper to the things we are and aren't spending money on, and we are and aren't doing. Like, I don't
yeah,
want to be the one with Jim, like, because Jim will actually say to me, well, I don't know, you decide, because I don't know where we are financially. I'm like, oh, no, you come on over here and take a look at where
let
we're
me
at
tell you where
financially.
we
Let me
are.
show you where we're at financially. Like,
You're
be
gonna
it
know
good.
now.
Yeah, good, bad, or ugly. Here's a screenshot of our
Right.
accounts, right? Like, you're not going to make me the scapegoat to what we
No.
are and aren't doing. But then also that's the in the real time situation. But like, you also need to know what your retirement is going to look like. Like,
Mhm.
if your spouse is not talking about excuse me, what we're doing as far as where the money's going, how much we're putting there, what our retirement looks like in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, what are our plans? Because guess what? Especially if you're a stay-at-home mom, and you're not building your own 401k, God forbid you get a divorce and you thought your husband was putting money in 401k, or he has a really good lawyer and you don't get his 401k. There's a lot going on as far as I just talked to someone the other day and they're like, well, I just wanted out of the marriage. And so I let them keep their entire 401k. And I look at that and I'm like, so where's your retirement? Because while you were at
Yeah.
home raising those kids and, cleaning dirty laundry and all that stuff and keeping a house, he's been building a career. He's been building a life. He's been building a resume. He's been building his 401k. And now you're 20 years into now a divorce with no career, no resume,
Yeah.
no 401k, period.
Yeah.
And women
Now
aren't I mean, there's so much that goes into, you need to
yeah.
be sound in your money. Like, this is not a joke, and everyone's going to be married forever until they're not.
Exactly. Well, and yeah, now we're going to get going. Okay, ladies, buckle up. There are hundreds of thousands of hours in unpaid labor that is only done by women in this country. And so if you actually gave a stay-at-home mom a salary for all the jobs she's doing, she is making six figures, because you are the chef, you are the driver, you are the nanny, you are the teacher,
Laundry,
you are the
cleaning
psychologist,
lady.
you are the, like, give me a
Yeah.
break. And sometimes in these situations, if there is not a fiduciary involved, so sometimes attorneys will bring in a CFP or a certified financial planner to say, like, okay, this is how much that would be worth. This is how much they would need for college, whatever. If you don't have that person on your legal team, that exact same thing happens. Surprise, you're getting a divorce. Everybody wants out of the marriage, but the money is still important here. And that's going to set the context for whatever the next stage of your financial life looks like. So you've got to stay. I know there's fatigue. I know it's incredibly draining. I've watched clients go through it.
Yeah.
But it's also like, let's just go back to being objective and practical and getting advice from somebody who's responsible for giving it to you. I think working with a fiduciary is one of the most important things people need to focus on right now, because there are so many books, so many podcasts, so many shows. Like, you can get financial advice from anywhere, but you've got to ask yourself, who's responsible for this advice if it goes wrong? Like, what happens if I do this? If I watch Saturday Night Live and purchase something because of what I hear on it, and then that goes wrong, who do I call? Like, who cares at that? And if the answer is you, by the way, that's great too. That's empowering. Like, I call myself, and maybe I fire myself on those kind of decisions. But I just think when you're not getting fiduciary based advice and you're not keeping the long term in mind, we can become so reactive, and you're in survival mode and you're just beat up. And then you land into a scenario, and a year later, it's like, why did I agree to do that in the divorce decree? Like, why are my kids still at public or private school? Why X, Y, and Z? Like, I don't have the money for that. And it's heartbreaking to watch, because I think it happens disproportionately to women, and it just goes unchecked. Like, well, are you going to go back to court and renegotiate that? Probably not. So now we're making different financial trade-offs because of the wrong context.
I find it very sad, because when a woman is at home, or vice versa, when one person's at home raising the kids and manning the household, and one is going to work and putting money into 401k, that is still that couple's retirement account.
Absolutely.
Just because that person goes into work and is saving by way of that vehicle, that still is that wife also. That wife is also doing without that monthly money, and she is also investing that money into a 401k plan. But then all of a sudden, it's time for a divorce, and everyone's judging the woman for taking the husband's 401k. What in the actual shit? You know what I mean?
What they should really be judging is whatever financial professional didn't have them doing a spousal IRA on the side. But that's one other piece. I think it's crazy. You're right. The woman is contributing to the family's financial life by not having the family hire 7 professionals just to replace what she is doing with her time. You know, when we look at life insurance and there's one person staying at home and there's one person working, it's like, well, they're working. So nope. If we hired you, that's millions of dollars in, potential economic value for the family.
Yeah. I mean, my life insurance it's about half of what Jim's is, but because our family knows that if I die, there's a lot that needs to happen. Like, we need drivers, we need nannies, we need cleaning people more often, we need someone to help with the laundry, because he's not here to do all of those things.
Right.
We don't need to hire a garbage can taker outerer. Jim's got that. Jim will be able to man the garbage can taker outerer. We'll find a way to make that happen.
That invaluable skill.
But you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that's important. And that's one thing too. Do you also get with people? Because I know this is a huge gaping hole gaping hole as far as people is making sure that they do have the wills and the trusts and
Mm.
the powers of attorney for medical, financial, living wills. Because so many people I know that are in their 50s, 60s, have children in and out of the house. They're missing large portions of
Yeah.
planning
Oh
that
yeah.
they need. And then all of a sudden, everyone's pissed because the person's in the hospital and we don't have any of our forms ready. We have no
They never
forms.
thought they would go to the hospital. They were never
Jeez,
going to die.
whiz. I can't.
Now so that's actually part of the financial plan. The foundational elements is looking at estate planning. And people hear estate and they're like, oh, I don't have an estate. It's like, well, do you have a pulse?
Right.
You have an estate.
You have an estate.
Surprise, you're rich now.
Right.
You're alive. But it was, I had to do my own work around it because we had kids like a little less thought around it than maybe the average person. It was like, oh, we have kids now. Okay.
Yeah.
And I would sit across from clients and be like, what's your estate plan? Here's an attorney you can work with. Here's some, solutions online potentially. If you have questions about those, like, here's what they look like. Here's where they make sense. Here's where they don't. And then they're like, well, what did you do? I'm like, well, here's where you can do it. I don't want to talk about it. I have my own thing with dying and, control issues about my kids, and it's all coming up and I'm not going to talk about it with you. And it took us our son was almost 3 by this. Well, he was 2. So he was on his way to being 3.
That's not too bad.
But it was really, I think what was most difficult about that, it was specifically when you have kids. You can appoint a guardian, but you can actually appoint 2 guardians. So one person that would raise your kids that's more value aligned, and then one person who handles the financial aspects. Because if both my husband and I died, like many families, there would be all kinds of financial decisions to make. And sometimes, humans are humans. So the more you can delegate that out and create accountability, the better it is for your family. And so I don't prepare any estate documents directly. I'm not an attorney, but we work with great ones.
Yeah, you point in the direction of. And
it's the accountability. If I've told you for 4 years to get an estate plan and you're not me, so I can't be nice to you about it. What's going on here? Like, did something happen? Because a lot of times ignoring that kind of thing in your financial life has nothing to do with like, oh, it's hard to write a will. It's more about like the thought of dying is like anxiety producing for me. I don't want to miss moments with my kids. I already feel like I am, there's all kinds of different things that are actually happening. It has very little to do with that. So it's like, okay, well, we're still going to do it. Let's talk
still
about
have to
that.
power through.
Let's work through that. And then let's get it done. And I think especially, this is my first pandemic. I think it's yours as well, right?
Well, I try to just do one a lifetime.
I'm going to do this one. And, I don't think I thrived at the beginning, but I'm headed for a comeback. But this really brought about like those kinds of fears for people. And maybe there were economic and financial things too, and those can be a little bit more, they're just easy to understand because it's like, it is stressful when your job changes and X, Y, and Z, but it's really stressful when there's a huge unknown around our health and how do we protect ourselves? How do we protect our families? What's happening in our community? It's brought so much of that to the forefront. So,
huge.
Estate planning, a lot more popular right now.
Right. Well, I so appreciate you spending all this time with us. And we've hit everything from, the Girardis to Bravo to Housewives to estate planning. It's been a full throttle
why they
episode.
All need better money conversation.
And you
model better friendship.
I know, right? And you are offering anyone, so it's going to be in the show notes, your link to your website. So anyone that uses the link in the show notes, or however you found me, because it could also, it might be coming out if you have a newsletter too, like you might be sharing it. So wherever you find this link, go ahead, you explain it.
It's in the computer. Where they're all living. So I am a financial wellness provider through Ameriprise, which means that we either do, workshops, webinars on different financial topics, but I also have a website where you can go on your own time, because if you're like me, this all comes up at 3 a.m. anyways. So hard to call someone at that time and go through calculators, articles on all these different aspects of your financial life. On that site, there is a request for some time. And so for the listeners of this podcast, absolutely we'll sit down for an hour and just talk through your financial life, your goals, creating a timeline and understanding what you need. And then if you do choose to move forward with financial planning, we're offering a $100 discount as well.
Yay. So all my listeners get a $100 discount. I'm taking advantage of that.
I know you are.
I'm going to get the $100 off.
This.
I know, right?
Well, and it's, our fees are billed monthly. So when people start the relationship, we want to get the plan and the recommendations right out the gate and then, see if it's the right fit for you.
Yeah.
And my goal is to point you in the right direction of where you can get the best financial support.
Well, I'm just kind of looking at this as the Cheryl and Meredith team against travel hockey. I see the t-shirt. I see it. I see a team building.
I'm
such a bad mom. I'm such a bad mom. I know.
Listen, yes, we're both amazing moms and we're also bad moms. And that's what's fun about it. And I think it's so important too, to remember like mom guilt, working mom, these phrases do not translate to our male counterparts. And so I think I'm working hard to make good choices, mom.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Sometimes they don't involve hockey.
Well, I just have loved being with you today. I've had so much fun. Like, it's amazing how much you can actually talk about money. It's amazing how many topics touch it. So like, this has been super fun and I really appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge. And I hope everyone is calling you and getting their hour appointment to figure out like, if it makes sense for them. Like, it's not going to make sense for everybody, but
it's not going to make sense for everybody.
Hey,
but take the time, let's sit down and talk it through. Absolutely.
And figure it out. And it's, like, I'm going to tell both of my kids to call you. And cause like, I know they're 22 and 25, but hey, it's going to wake them up to, do I really need to buy my friends fillets and cook them for them every Saturday? And that kind of,
you can buy me.
I know. I'm coming to visit, Cody. Buy me a fillet. But seriously, this is
that age, like the things you have to do to start saving for retirement, it's so different because you have time on your side and that only goes down, as we get older. So it's amazing to start working with that generation.
Yeah, it is cool. And they're ready. It's time to start those habits. You know what I mean? Yeah. The savings habits is starting today, but thank you so much, my love. I so appreciate you being here. I hope everyone that's listening calls and go to the show notes. She's on Instagram at Cheryl Boyd, BOYD, CHERYL Boyd. So check her out on Instagram. And then the website address, which is long and lengthy, will be in the show notes. So click on that to get your $100 off for listening. And she's also on LinkedIn at Cheryl Nelson-Boyd. And that's in the show notes as well. So hit her up, ask her questions, make your free hour appointment, and get on board with planning out the rest of your financial life and quit being afraid of it and putting your head in the sand. Because guess what? Today is the youngest we're ever going to be. Today's the day.
Oh, I love that.
Today's the youngest we're going to be.
And
damn, we look good. So.
Yes, we really do.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Oh, you too. Thank you so much for having me. I love the work that you're doing. I think you're creating such amazing resources for women in these topics that are hard to talk about. And it's not easy work and you're crushing it. So thank you.
Thanks, hon. All right. Thanks for listening. If you would like to connect on a more personal level, head over to meredithwillits.com or on Instagram at Meredith with a Y for behind-the-scene footage and outtakes. Please subscribe and come back each week for more Meredith with a Y. Thanks again for listening. Cheers.